All right, district breakdown time. John Corman from the Houston Chronicle joins us to talk about probably the best 6A district in at least the Houston area. I'm not going to say the state because there's always 5 6A up there in North Texas. But you got the Katy schools here in 19-6A. Man, talk to me. They got a new entry into their little group of Katy teams here with Pato moving up. Talk to me about how you feel this district may sort itself out.
Yeah, I mean, that was, even though we saw it coming, that was one of the bigger Houston area storylines with the UIL realignment, with Pato moving up to 6A. Obviously, we knew that was going to happen, but, it's really interesting now with them coming off of their state championship run. They have a new head coach in Lonnie Teagle, who came down from Denton Ryan as the offensive coordinator. So he's got a lot of, winning pedigree there. And they're going to have a lot of kids. They're going to be right up there in attendance with the rest of these schools. So it only makes sense for them to be competing against the best as well. And I would expect for the Panthers to, not only, compete for a playoff spot, but, perhaps grab one of those top two spots. Of course, it's going to be, a battle with Katy. Of course, Katy is the prohibitive favorite every single year in this district, and for good reason. You just look at their track record under Coach Gary Joseph and what they've been able to accomplish, and reaching the state semifinals last year. But it's going to be very competitive. I feel like there's 5 pretty good, solid teams in this district, and of course, as we always know, there's only 4 playoff spots up for grabs. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how it plays out.
Well, before you dangled a little carrot there in front of me, but I'm not going to bite at it yet. We'll figure out who your 5 teams are in a little bit, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into Katy and Katy Pato, because not only is Pato jumping up, but they're adding probably the best defensive player in the state, some say in the country, with David Hicks coming in here. I wandered into a high school basketball game up here in North Texas, Allen versus somebody, and it was a JV. And this Hicks was playing JV, and so you see him without the pads and just a tank top. And I was scared to death just shooting. I said, man, this is the biggest dude I've ever seen. And I looked at the roster and see it's Hicks, and I was like, oh, my God. And then now he's down to Pato, and he joins that solid defense that they have already, with that Damian Sanford and a bunch of other guys. They talk about how that defense may collide with that Katy offense. It seems like a clash of the Titans there.
Yeah, it's a really amazing addition to this already really good Pato defense. I mean, they have several starters back from last year's state championship team, as you already alluded to, but adding Hicks there, kind of right in the middle of the action, he's a guy who can rush the passer. He can play the run really well. He can do everything pretty well. He's good at football. And so, with his dad on the coaching staff there, and, he played at Morton Ranch as a sophomore. So he's really, kind of coming back home here to the Katy area. But yeah, I mean, that's, it's going to be interesting to see how Pato's offense kind of takes shape. Of course, Jacob Brown is gone now, and their starting quarterback also graduated. So, I think they're really going to hang their hats on defense, and Hicks obviously is going to be a huge part of what they do schematically there.
And then on the other side, you got Katy's offense with Seth Davis and Caleb Conger back, and their massive offensive line. That's just going to be – I didn't get a chance to check the schedule, but that's one we got to circle. We got to get my man Foreman down there. We got to get a couple of Photogs down there. We got to see how this thing pans out. Let's talk – since you dangled it out there, who are the other 3 teams that you liken to fight for those top 4 playoff spots?
Well, I really like Tompkins. Obviously, under Coach McVay, they've done a really nice job of establishing a winning culture there. Their only loss in district last year was to Katy. And then, we saw two really solid seasons out of Seven Lakes and Cinco Ranch last year. And of course, Cinco Ranch has a starting returning quarterback in Gavin Rutherford, who had a really nice season. So those are kind of the teams that I like to kind of fill out that district. Like I said, these are 5, really solid teams, really solid programs, and I think it's going to come down to those matchups between them. And it's tough. It's tough. You can't pick against Katy at this point. You like what Pato did last year, but it's a whole new ball game here at 6A, and it's death, taxes, and Katy Tigers running the football. So I mean, you got a 2,000-yard rusher, as you mentioned, and Seth Davis coming back, and you know what they're going to do, and you really can't stop it anyways. But yeah, I'm really excited about this district. As you mentioned, probably one of the best in the Houston area when you're looking at, those top 4, 5, 6 teams. And I think it's going to be a real battle down the stretch.
Yeah, a lot of people overlook that Gavin Rutherford, but I feel like he's the top quarterback in that area, and he's just silently doing his job. You look at the rest of the teams in this district. You got May Creek, Morton Ranch, Jordan, of course, is probably going to struggle a little bit because they're still just starting out, and Katy Taylor. But team that may jump out is May Creek has that Tayshawn Wilson at cornerback, and he may be able to shut down some things. But then again, the quarterbacks could go to the other side of the field and not mess with him at all during the games. But out of those 4 teams, do you see anybody even slightly trying to jump in there?
Yeah, I like May Creek. As you mentioned, Wilson is an excellent player there at cornerback. It's going to be, can they kind of, put it all together here? They've had some success in recent years. When Coach Brian Randall, who's now at Randall High School, was there, they had, they kind of started to build in the right direction there. And I think that's continued. It's just going to be, can they put it all together? I think that they can definitely get themselves in the mix, though, after what I saw last season. And then, Jordan, it's going to be interesting to see how they come along. They're kind of where Pato was a few seasons ago. Of course, they're kind of jumping right into 6A. This will be their first, first year playing in a UIL district. So it's going to be a learning curve for them. They're obviously going to have a young team, and so they're probably going to take some lumps, but that's all part of the process here. Jumping into big boy 6A, Texas high school football. It's a learning process for these kids, but you could very well see kind of the building blocks for that program. They've had a lot of success in other sports this past year, and you kind of get a feel for what they're trying to establish down there.
I guess we both kind of feel that Katy Taylor's is kind of taken a few steps back ever since the mountain has left and moved on to Texas A&M, and nobody's holding down the line as well as he did. They're probably going to take a few lumps as well, right?
Yeah, Katy Taylor, they've had some good years, and they've had some good seasons in recent years as well. It's tough when you look at the top teams in this district, though, and kind of where do they fit in. I think, it's just going to be really hard to make the playoffs out of this district for all of these teams. And, it's going to come down to a few crucial games against teams that are around you in the standings. And, can you win that? If you're in 5th place, can you win that game against the 4th or 3rd place team? Can you pull an upset of a Pato or a Katy? And it's just, that's what it's going to take. You're going to have to pull out some gritty wins and maybe get 1 or 2 that people might not expect you to.
Right, and with 9 teams, they get at it right away. They get to 2 non-districts, and then it's time to play. And then it's one of those districts where the 5th place team that you talked about, top 5 teams, the 5th place team probably could finish 2nd and 3rd in a lot of these other districts. But you just you are where you are. You got to take your lumps. And we kind of even glossed over the fact that the state champion Pato Panthers, they're getting a new head coach in there as well, because BJ Gott moved on to Pearland, so they'll be learning that stuff as well. But we'll go ahead and talk 26A next week, and that one looks a lot like Fort Bend, Rich Point maybe doing their thing again this year, but they got a little company this year with Hightower moving up, so we'll talk a little bit about that next week. Yeah, that's another really intriguing district with Hightower moving up, so it should be a lot of fun to talk about here. Excellent. All right, I'll talk to you next week. See ya.